it going, guys? Dylan from Luxury Lives On, and I hope everyone's doing well today. Today is another installment of my new series, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, where I take a look at high-mild luxury cars to tell you, well, what the hell happens when you actually drive these things? Now, today's subject is our family's classic car. This is a car that I've worked on with my dad. It is a 200,000-mile 1988 944 Turbo S Silver Rose Edition. God, that's a mouthful. But it's a mouthful because it's a special car. In fact, usually, guys, you might complain, well, this segment's supposed to be about luxury cars, but when this car was new, with inflation calculated, it was almost $100,000. So I figured this thing had to count. And, well, I really wanted to take a look at this wonderful slice of the 80s. Wait a second. I forgot something very important. Hold on. Aha, there we go. Pop-up headlights. Alright guys, so before we go through the good, bad, and ugly things on our Porsche 944 Turbo S Silver Rose, allow me to give you a brief history on why, well, an almost ordinary looking 944 is so extraordinary. God, that sounded good. Alright, let me just read this and get a little information. A study of subject choice determinants in the secondary school and the implications of these for vocational development. Wait a second, this isn't the right book. And I don't wear glasses. Ah, yes, this is more like it. A giant poster board with colorful pictures and big writing. You see, this I can actually understand, and yes, we are that nerdy where we have a poster board of our car. But it's for good reason. You see, there's a lot of history to this car. So they made a 944, 944S, 944 Turbo, and a 944 Turbo S. It was the final version of the 944, and basically it was derived from the Turbo Cup Racing series. This was a series where they raced around 944 turbos, and well, because of this race, they wanted to commemorate it with a final edition, and because of that, they were able to rip all of the parts from the Turbo Cup race car and put it on the Turbo S production car. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dylan, this looks like an ordinary 944. There is nothing special about it, you just want to feel special. You want to be that typical guy at Cars and Coffee that goes, look at my special low production vehicle. Yeah, but also there are some things that will differentiate this car from a turbo and the normal 944. First of all, this front is totally different on the turbo versus the regular. But getting to the S, it's actually a very subtle, funny thing. Dog, shut up. Oh my God. That seemed to work. The wheels. So the wheels on the regular one actually look pretty identical, except for there's one little detail. It's these indentations around here. This is what all the Porsche guys fight for. And actually, when we got the car, we found rusted ones and we had to get them reconditioned and painted because they were so hard to find and the original owner didn't have them. Now on the Turbo S, you also got wider tires and you got the brakes from a 928. In addition to that, you actually got adjustable, in terms of ride height and tension, Coney springs. Those little yellow things there, that's the lingerie of the Coney spring. And just walking around the car, it is pretty similar to, well, a 944. Also on the standard turbo, not even the S, you got this little diffuser piece here, which is really, really cool. But in terms of the SS, like, there wasn't much really from an exterior point of view. Where all the magic comes from is, well, the racing stuff, the stuff that the Turbo Cup car gave this car. And we have to go into the engine to see. So, this is the engine of our 944 Turbo S. Now, some of the differences with this versus a normal one is it actually had a different engine to a certain extent. It has a larger turbo, a hardened steel gearbox, and well, this did a lot of magical things. The Turbo S went to about 247 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque, and a 5.50 to 60 with 162 mile an hour top speed, which is very impressive. Not only that, the fact that I memorized that is very impressive. I mean, we have to hide this. God, shut up. All right, so I've told you that the Turbo S is so rare and special, 1,000 made. Well, it gets even more special, guys. This is a Silver Rose edition. So out of that 1,000, around 381 Silver Roses were made. Now, don't quote me or kill me if I'm wrong on that number, but even Charlie Sheen had one of these, so I don't know if that's a good thing, actually. But anyway, what differentiates this with the Silver Rose edition are two things. First of all, this love it or hate it interior. It is a plaid interior. It is pretty much everywhere, and well, it feels like sitting on an itchy couch, which in its own right is charming and uncomfortable. But the other thing, and it's hard to tell, is the color actually is the Silver Rose color. So it's almost a silver, and in kind of like dimmer lights, like say on a gray day, you'll see a pink hint in the paint, which is really, really cool. Swear to God, I don't know if you guys watch my videos, hopefully you do, but there's a plane in like every flipping scene. I think we're like under attack right now. Okay, so the car kind of died. Probably my fault for leaving the key in the ignition and the headlights up, but that's one thing in this car that we've struggled with is the battery. So right now I'm gonna have to take a quick pause on the video because I'm gonna try to have to basically roll this down the driveway and do a mechanical start with the clutch. So wish me luck. Car on so it doesn't die, but one of the, god damn it. Hey Mom, I'm in the middle of a video right now. So it's fair to say we've had some interruptions today. We've had dogs barking, planes overhead, my mom calling, and most importantly, the car died. But let's talk about some of the good, bad, and ugly things about this car now. And I better go quick because I don't want this thing dying again. One of the most great things about it is it's just a beautiful slice of the 80s. And what's more 80s than pop-up headlights? See, it's like 80s witchcraft. Well, there are some wear and tear items on the car just from the 200,000 miles we've had it. So it has rock chips here and there just from driving. You can see right here and even on some of the mirrors. And then these like lights all around the reflectors sometimes fade, but you can just polish those up. What else? Oh, these cars of this era notoriously loved using rubber for some reason. Rubber all around, and you gotta be really careful because sometimes it deteriorates, but it's lasted really well in this car. I don't know if it's particularly for this car, but yeah, it's been pretty good. However, this windshield can be very expensive to replace, and it does create kind of a greenhouse effect in the car. You have these checkerboard taillights as well, which sometimes actually collect water in them, so you have to be careful of that, but we haven't had too many issues there. But yeah, I mean, it's been pretty good. I mean, it does have 200,000 miles, but maybe we should, well, stop there, because going in the interior, it does get a bit more messy. Now, I've told you, oh, it's got the most lovely interior, and it is nice, but it doesn't stop with the problems, because, well, these seats notoriously suffer from fading and ripping. Ripping here, and then the pink will actually line up over time. And the funny thing is, on the forums, I'll have a guy go, oh, I just replaced my interior and it's already breaking a year later. And that just comes with the interior, and it's pretty much everywhere. But I think it's really, really pretty. The problem is, if you do get it replaced, it's very expensive. It's very hard to source it. I had to call basically this German guy, didn't even speak English, and go, hi, I'm sorry if you don't understand my English or anything like that, but I need some of your interior, please. The funny thing is, Porsche originally sourced this from an outside source when they made the car. And it's tricky to get, you know, kind of applied on here, because you really have to match the grain and the pattern. It's really a technical thing. Now, moving onto the dashboard, the rips continue, or breaks. The 944s and, you know, cars of this era, the pleather notoriously cracks, so you have to be careful. We got it with that, so there's nothing we can really do. Steering wheel has a bit of wear on it too, but I think it adds a lot of character. I mean, also some cracking and things like that. But yeah, I think it's, you know, it's a car that we drive. Now, being a German Porsche, there is a lot of technology in the car. The really cool thing is there's a boost gauge here for how much boost is being used. It's measured in bar. It even has a CD player, which was unheard of in the time. It was so futuristic, you could probably call this a DeLorean. But yeah, this originally came with the car. And the funny thing is, it has an 80s equalizer, and even more funny, it doesn't have a place for CDs. Instead, it has a place for cassette tapes, which is really, really funny. In addition to that, really cool thing I noticed is it almost has the original version of the chrono package in a Porsche. So you hit this and it basically can start a clock, and you can, I guess, lap times and things like that, maybe, I don't know. Or maybe just measuring when your toast will be ready, who knows, whatever you choose. There's a 10 speaker system in here, which is really great. And it's got a windscreen wiper, a rear windscreen wiper, which I'll show you right now. And everything works in the car. We've cared for the car, but also it's just a very solid car. So I'll show you. That works. All the air works, everything like that. The climate control. If you smoke cigarettes, you can use that as well. The roof even goes up and down. And this roof actually comes off and can be stored. And well, every light works. There's a light bulb everywhere for some reason. There's a light bulb here. Even when you open the front engine, there's a light bulb. Shut up, car. And the last thing is just to show you how ridiculously German and over-engineered this car is. Apparently, the windscreen washer fluid is preheated before it comes out in case you're in cold conditions and it could freeze. So, yep, very Porsche. Now, moving on to the trunk. It's a very spacious car. In fact, it's been really practical. We've done a lot of moving with this car. Obviously, you have to have amputee, basically children missing limbs, things like that to fit in there. But there's a ton of space here, and you can even fold these rear seats down to get additional space and remove this bar. Yeah, it's just, it's a very practical car. There's storage underneath, we have the full toolkit, everything like that. And the other really cool thing is, you know, when you own a classic car, the big concern always is, you know, is it safe? And this was one of the first cars to have airbags, and it even has ABS. So, all right, now we are in the business end of our 944. This is the part that frightens most people, but I have to tell you, it's a very solid car. But you have to look out for two things. One of them being belts, and the other one being hoses. First of all, you want to make sure when those were done, and who did them, and why. Now, the other great thing about it is it's got no stupid plastic cover covering the engine to make it look prettier. It is a very accessible engine. Everything's available, and you can kind of tinker and mess with it, and that makes it also, you know, a pleasure to work on if you have to as well. Alright, now we are in the business end of our 944. This is the part that frightens most people, but I have to tell you it's a very solid car. But you have to look out for two things. One of them being belts, and the other one being hoses. First of all, you want to make sure when those were done, and who did them, and why. That's very important because those are two of the big failure points on this car. Now, the other great thing about it is it's got no stupid plastic cover covering the engine to make it look prettier. It is a very accessible engine. Everything's available and you can kind of tinker and mess with it. And that makes it also, you know, a pleasure to work on if you have to as well. You see, this big scary binder is the service history for a 944 Turbo S. But don't be alarmed, this is a good thing. You see, you want a juicy binder when you're buying a car. You want to know everything that's been worked on and how much the stupid owner paid to fix it. But there shouldn't be anything to worry about with this car, and I'll tell you why. You see, this is a rare variant of a mass-produced car, which means you get to have something pretty special, but replacing most of the little things on this car is really not that expensive. For instance, I have a little story for you. Once upon a time, this thing was left open. I sat in the passenger seat and crushed it and basically destroyed it with my big butt. Now there's a little bit of indecisiveness on whether it was my dad's fault leaving it open or my fault sitting on it. But anyway, let's not get into the semantics. The moral of the story is it was really cheap to replace. And that's one of the great things about this 944. If you go on eBay, you can find a lot of the little funny parts and you can get them for pretty cheap. Alright, we are now at the driving part of the review, so to speak. And funny thing is, this car doesn't have many quirks. It's a German Porsche. They've basically designed, well, happiness and quirkiness out of all of their cars. Except for there is one little funny controversial thing on this car. It actually doesn't have the ignition on the left like most Porsches have for the, well, it roots back to the Le Mans quick start where a guy would jump into the race car and quickly turn the key. In fact, it's on the right side. And well, there's something you have to do when you get into an 80s car. You have to pop up the headlights and pop on the music. Now, funny enough, there's actually a code you have to enter in for this. And the main reason being is in the 1980s, people liked to steal other people's radios. Now, we gotta put it on what we like to call the jams. Oh yes. Oh yes. Let's see what the turning radius is like. Let's start with the fact that this is an old car with 200,000 miles on it. And that's a lot, but you don't feel it in the car. It drives very solid. We got a lot of oil pressure. Battery seems fine now. It's not dead. And as long as you warm these things up, they're pretty good to go, honestly. You turn the key, start, and drive. Now, the clutch it's a nice clutch. It's not too heavy or deep. It sounds very sexual, but it's an easy, forgiving clutch to use. It doesn't have like the lack of feeling like, say, your Honda Civic would, where they just shoved a manual transmission in there because it's cheaper. No, it's a fun car to drive. But actually, I want to show you guys something that's really funny on this car. So, in the 1980s, we just started introducing turbos. Everything had a turbo name on it. Problem with it is there's something called turbo lag. I'm flat, and that's kicking in. That is the humor of turbo lag. So usually only about, I'd say, 3,000 RPM, the actual turbo kicks in, which is, I mean, one of the funniest parts about it. Now, how does it drive? Once you're in that 3,000 RPM sweet spot, it's great. It's a actual genuinely fast car. I know you're thinking, oh, it's old, Dylan. No, it's a fast, entertaining car. And unlike the 911 that has to have the rear engine at the back, this is in the front, meaning they were able to really distribute the weight better. So you have really a 50-50 weight distribution, which makes this car a handling animal. There's actually a funny little story for you, and 911 guys, don't kill me for saying this, but there was an article not too long ago, around the 80s, and they basically reviewed the 944 Turbo S against the 911 930 Turbo, which was the big Mac daddy of the Porsche world. It was the best thing you could get. Both turbo cars, but one substantially cheaper than the other, and it didn't bear the 911 badge, so it never got the credit it deserved. But they took both cars around the track, and this car beat the 930 Turbo around the track with less power, and it wasn't a 911. So I told you that David and Goliath story for a reason. The 944 Turbo S beating the 930 Turbo. And the main reason being is not to convince you of, well, the excellence of a 944, but maybe to rather demonstrate how underrated these cars are. And the main reason being is because, well, it's always lived in the shadow of the 911. No one's ever given this car the respect it needed and deserved. And, well, it really was a great thing for Porsche because it offered them an opportunity to experiment with something other than a 911, and they ended up making something pretty great. Problem is, because these nitpicky Porsche enthusiasts will only want 911s, these cars were not worth that much. And when we were originally looking for 911s on the market, we realized what many people realize, that the 911 market is a big bubble. All of them are overpriced, overvalued. I mean, you look at the 911R when that came out even, and it was worth like $1 million almost, which is an absolute joke. So naturally, I think these cars are going to climb for a few reasons. One of them being because all the 911s have been bought up, people are naturally going to turn to this car. Second being, all the people that grew up with these cars, the 80s children, can now afford them and want them. And the third reason being is it's an incredibly capable, fun, amazing handling, and quirky slice of the 80s. And guys, that's why I love this 944 Turbo. Well guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, found it funny, interesting, informative, whatever you want to call it. We have yet another goddamn plane overhead. It's like I'm in an air base right now. But anyway guys, I hope you also loved this sexy slice of the 80s and you found some of the good, bad, ugly a little interesting. Now, if you want to follow me on more things, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and obviously YouTube as well. And if you want to see what equipment I'm using, check the Amazon links below. If you guys liked the video, please do give it a like. If you want to see more of my content, please do subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.